Let's welcome in our morning guest. We have Shrikant Shetty now with us. T.S. Ananthakrishnan, Sameet Chavan, as well as Ashish Chaturmoha will join us in just a bit. Mr. Shetty, if you could just start by giving your picks.
A couple of picks. Good morning. A couple of picks from a trading and investment perspective. One is Tech Mahindra, which we've been consistently recommending for some time now. And as I said, in terms of uncertainty, we've been looking at sectors which will relatively be unaffected, and that is one of them. And this is one of the better plays in the technology pack, where we think margins and volumes will see improvement. The worst seems to be behind here, and things on the business front, we should see improvement going ahead. The valuations have corrected a lot, so we like Tech Mahindra at these levels. We have an investment target about 560. The other one is Bharat Forge, which also is looking positive from an investment perspective. Again, most of the negatives which the company was facing seems to have been done with the decline in trucks business international on the US front seems to be reducing, and we will start seeing growth from here on. So that's what is a broad expectation. Plus there is a potential trigger in terms of defense business playing off over the medium to longer term. So that's Bharat Forge. We're looking at a target about 1010 there. From a trade perspective, we have a stop loss of about 875.
Sameet, what are your calls?
See, we are optimistic on market, and thus we have all long recommendation. First one will be on Container Corp. Yesterday we saw good traction in this counter. The stock has managed to give a decisive breakout from daily 20 EMA with rising volume. So going ahead, we expect this stock to extend this move toward 1208, which would be a near-term target. Stop loss would be around 1102. Our second buy would be on Jet Airways. Yesterday we saw a strong rally in Jet Airways after a consolidation of nearly 2 weeks. The stock has managed to give a decisive close beyond its near-term hurdle of 360. The volume activity has also picked up. Thus going ahead, we expect Jet Airways to extend this move toward 380, stop loss 352. And our third buy would be on PNB. Of late, we have seen a decent correction in most of the PSU banking counters. However, since last 3 to 4 days, this stock has been hovering around its daily 200 SMA. Yesterday we saw good traction in this counter, and going ahead, looking at the momentum oscillators placement, we expect this stock to climb towards 122, which would be a near-term target, and stop loss would be around 112.
All right, let's welcome in Ashish Chaturmoha as well. Ashish, what are your top picks for the day?
Hi, good morning. My first pick would be a long call on ONGC. We are witnessing a good amount of strength in the entire crude space, and I think ONGC would be the best play in the current scenario, where the stock has already formed a strong inverted head and shoulder, and I think we have seen a very strong addition in terms of open interest as well. So I think this stock has a potential to test 300, 310. Sorry, I think it's 205, 210 kind of levels on upside, and on downside, I think 287 should be kept as a trading stop loss. So ONGC looks very strong. My other pick would be a long call on IGL.
You just said 210. It's 310, right? For ONGC.
Yes, I think it's 210. The target.
No. Okay, because it's because of the bonus, it's revised. Yeah, that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
My other pick would be a long call on IGL. Now again, if you look at IGL, is trading near its all-time high and has seen a very strong volume action in last couple of trading sessions. This stock has a potential to cross its previous high and target somewhere around 940, 945. At current levels, one can initiate a long, keep a stop below 910 for an upside target of 940, and because of weakening rupee, I think IT is again in a focus, and within that space HCL Tech is one stock which is looking extremely positive. On the daily and weekly chart, the stock has given a fresh breakout above 820 levels, so one can initiate a long at current levels, keep a stop below 815, and an upside can look for a target of 855, 860 levels.
All right, let's focus on some macroeconomic data that came out. We got the core sector data for the month of November.
Auto numbers continue, Anisha, so we focused on a lot of numbers, but a couple of them came out post market hours.
All right. Wanted to ask you, Shrikant, have you had a look at some of the housing finance companies? We were expecting them to react positively after the Prime Minister's announcement on New Year's Eve, while smaller ones like GRU and Repco, did perform positively. We saw HDFC and LIC Life Insurance, Housing Finance, LIC Housing Finance, quite a cut. Can you tell us what's going on? Is there a belief that only a particular category of housing finance companies will do well while the stress for the others will continue? How do you read into this?
No, I think primarily from what the Prime Minister said, I think it will be entirely beneficial to the housing sector and the housing finance sector. Of course, it depends on how things shape up. But yes, what has happened along with that is that the rate cuts which have been announced by banks, I think this could hurt some of the HFCs which have funding where they'll have to reprice their loans. I think that is where the issue has come in for LIC Housing or HDFC, where they will need to reprice their loans, and that would hurt margins in the near term. I think that's what, and anyway the business is slow for most of the housing finance companies in the near term. So that's because we are expecting some slow movement in the real estate. Though over a longer term, yes, I think the housing finance remains a very, very good story, and the low cost affordable housing space would obviously be better placed than the premium segments. So clearly the smaller financiers, who are catering to the affordable housing segment would be better off. And the other aspect which I talked about is the borrowing thing, where there is more bank borrowings, they will be better off because the bank borrowing cost will probably get reduced. So that is also a factor which the market is considering.
All right. Ashish, what kind of build-up are we seeing in some of the bank names? Yesterday, the bank nifty hugely underperformed in the frontline indices. The bet wasn't bad, but the banks were just not moving and were being a big drag on the markets. What kind of build-up are we seeing there?
See, as of now, definitely we have seen a lot of short build-up happening in most of the PSU banking basket. But in terms of price action, what we are witnessing is that at a lower end of the range, most of the stocks are finding some support, and we are not witnessing a major correction in the prices. That gives me a sense that at some point of time we will start seeing some amount of short covering from current levels. So I'll not be on the shorting side of the banking space at the current levels. I believe that yes, definitely the entire trend on a longer term looks little bearish, but at this point of time we expect most of these names to see some kind of short covering, and within that space I think SBI, HDFC Bank and Yes Bank, these are the three counters where I think there can be a good amount of pullback from current levels.
T.S. Ananthakrishnan, Managing Director at Varanium Capital Advisors, is also now joining us this morning. What are your sectors or stocks that you would be overweight on, Anantha?
So we believe, from a consumption standpoint, I think the pickup will happen in a quarter or two. So we are bullish on autos, cement, some of the private sector banks, pharmaceutical and technology. So those are broadly the sectors that we are bullish on. Obviously, there are opportunities in the regulated utility space too. So if you look at our existing portfolio, we would be avoiding some of the we would be picking up some of the consumption oriented. We'll still be avoiding the investment led cycle because we're not seeing visibility out there yet.
What will be your view, Anantha, on housing finance companies, especially after the fall yesterday, something like a LIC Housing? Do you think that there could be some worries in the near term?
No, I think the issue really is in terms of the margin pressure that these guys would effectively have, given what SBI has done. 90 bips drop in rates is a huge difference. I mean, if you look at the likes of Divan Housing and LIC Housing Finance, I think incrementally you will see that the cost of funding is also started to come down. I mean, in the last 2 quarters, the cost of funding has gone down by 20 to 30 bips for these guys, for these companies, and therefore, yes, there will be an impact potentially, but that will be offset in terms of volume growth, which is likely to happen. And volume growth will not happen just because lending rates have come off. Volume growth will also happen in terms of the type of products that you come out with, what innovations and structures that you come out with. An example being a 3-year fixed and then a variable. So there are a whole host of products that would come out, which will determine volume. So from our standpoint, yes, it's mildly negative, but I wouldn't say I would still be betting on many of these HFCs, because they have also fallen about 30-35% in the last 2 months post the demonetization announcement.
Ashish, what's your call on Titan? They've given an upgrade about their Q3. It's better than what fundamental analysts were expecting.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is being built up in the price, and the stock has formed a double bottom formation around 300 odd levels, and we have seen a good amount of uptick in the price as well as the volume since the stock has hit this 300 mark. Now from the current levels, I think still there is a lot of potential, and on upside we might see this stock testing 355. 360 kind of levels. So at current levels, it's a buy, and on downside I think 325 should continue to act as an important support. Keeping that as a stop loss, I think one can look for a target of 355, 360 levels.
But now also one can buy, or 325 or closer to that?
No, I think at current levels one can buy. 325 should be kept as a trading stop loss.
325 should be kept as a stop loss. So about 333 was yesterday's close, so about 8 to 9 rupees risk. And what will be the upside target?
So I'm looking for a target of 355, 360 levels.
355, 360 level. Titan should open on the higher side. That was the pre-open price that you just saw, 340, 341. They've given an update, which we just read out, where the Tanishq growth has been greater than 15%, which is a good number. Prices to start coming any moment now. We should get the first tick in just about a few seconds time. Nifty is expected to open slightly on the higher side. There you go with the opening bell. Nifty is up about 15 points, 8,195. Asian Paints is up 0.5%. Aurobindo Pharma is 1 rupee down. Hindalco is up about 0.4%. Bank of Baroda, 0.25% higher. ONGC is up 0.5%, 193. ICICI Bank is flat. Okay, it's blinking into red and green right now. Tata Motors was one of the top gainers yesterday. It's up around 4 rupees right now. BHEL is up 0.7 or about 0.5%, one can say. Tata Steel was among the gainers yesterday. It's down right now. And you can see that Nifty has also slipped into the red, so it's now down about 2 to 3 rupees. Power Grid is, I think, the top gainer on the Nifty pack, 0.6.7% higher for Power Grid, just about 29,000 shares, but it's not a very, very well traded counter, so maybe 29,000 is also a decent amount of volume. Tata Motors is the second top gainer, which is up around 0.6%, so that's having good volumes of 1.5 lakh shares, but it's one of the best traded counter. DVR is also up around 16,000, with 16,000 shares in terms of volumes is at about 310. ONGC, BHEL, Asian Paints are some of the other names. Titan is up around 1.6%, 40,000 shares traded for Titan. Remember, they gave that update, and the street would probably be happy by that upgrade. It's up around 1.5%. Bharti Airtel, some news flow regarding acquisition or what's happening on the acquisition side. It's up around 0.25%, 311, 312 for Bharti Airtel. Idea is also in news, but absolutely flat right now for Idea. Really no change, one can say, for Idea Cellular. So about 75 rupees for Idea Cellular. Bajaj Hindustan wanted to sell one of their plants. They've got an approval, so it's up around 3.5%. Let's also look at some of the other names. So NHPC is up about 0.75%. Power Grid was a stocks in news. We saw it was among the top gainers as well. Let's just pull up TVS and Hero as well. They are reacting to their numbers. So TVS and Hero, both the numbers were slightly on the lower side, but again, it was on the expected lines. Not that anybody would be surprised, especially after once we spoke to Bajaj yesterday that what has happened. So TVS is down 2%, 84,000 shares traded. Hero MotoCorp is down about 1.5, back below the levels of 3,000. Okay, it's gone now. As we are speaking, it's gone above the level of 3,000. So these are some of the stocks that are reacting to any news flow. Anisha, any stocks that you can pick up with good volumes?
All the sugar stocks, Pankaj, the sugar stocks started buzzing a day earlier, and today as well we're seeing strong moves. Balrampur Chini up 5%, Ogar Sugar, Dhampur Sugar, Uttam Sugar Mills, Bajaj Hindustan, Sri Renuka Sugar, all sugar stocks are buzzing. And now I think for the third straight day, sugar really seems to be a space that is looking very sweet. We've got Hindustan Constructions up 5%. We also have Kolte Patil, Aban Offshore and NBCC seeing strong gains today, and volumes are slightly higher in all of these counters. On the losing end, we're seeing LIC Housing Finance see that selling pressure intact. It's down about 1.5%, and some of the state-run banks, PNB, SBI, also seeing a little bit of selling. The selling is not severe, but on volumes, these are the stocks moving lower. Shrikant, have you had a look at the sugar stocks? We did speak to the Sugar Association, and they did mention that they had made a representation to the Finance Ministry that they be given some relief when it comes to restructuring of their loans. Ever since that meeting, I think early next week, the sugar stocks seem to be buzzing. Would you buy into any of this? Do you like any of the sugar stocks?
So from a trading perspective, they do look positive, but unfortunately we don't have any coverage on the sugar stocks, and really not well researched sector from our end. So won't be fair on my point to comment on that.
Mr. Krishnan, do you have any view on the sugar stocks? Any that may interest you? Because we're starting a new sugar season, and crushing in some factories has happened a little earlier than usual, and sugar prices also remain quite firm. Any view on sugar stocks?
Nothing. We don't really. We don't have any sugar related stocks within our portfolio. We've always stayed away. At least in the last couple of years, we've stayed away. And UP being one of the largest sugar producers in India, given elections out there, we wouldn't really be looking at any investment in this play. So at this stage, we don't really have, and we are still avoiding any of these agri-commodity plays.
Right. Sameet, have you had a look at NBCC? That one has been moving fast on the charts and moving up. Any targets on NBCC?
See, since last 3-4 days, we have seen a decent up move in NBCC. The stock has managed to give a decent bounce from 200-day moving average, which was placed around 220. Yesterday also we saw a good price volume breakout from a resistance of 240 on a closing basis, and today clearly we are seeing a follow-up buying. Thus going ahead, we expect the stock to extend this move to 268 to 270. These are the next levels to watch out for. So at least we would see extension of this rally towards 270, and on the lower side now 240, 242 would act as a very strong support zone.
Ananta, real estate stocks have done particularly well. You mentioned about real estate housing finance companies earlier. Do you think real estate is a pack that could do well whenever rates have gone down so substantially? Real estate has bounced back with good volume numbers.
Yes, I think, I think the worst seems to be over as far as real estate price correction is concerned. I think there may be...
You're talking about real estate stocks or real estate asset?
So we're talking about the real estate stocks per se, because many of these real estate companies, whether it be the likes of DLF and, some of the better managed companies like Shobha and Oberoi, there is obviously inventory that they have which needs to go out, and I think what is happening is much of the inventory that they are repricing are at the right appropriate levels. So from that standpoint, the stocks obviously have taken a hit. I mean, you see a DLF which is north of 150 had come down to 110. At these valuations, and given the trajectory that we are seeing with the interest rates going down, you're not going to see an immediate bump up in real estate, but what will happen is the fall from these levels seem extremely limited, and from a risk reward perspective, if you take a 2 to 3 year view and assuming that India is going to do well in the next 3-4 years, then real estate typically comes back in the third cycle of on the third year of a bull run. So from that standpoint, given valuations, given where the current debt to equity positions are for many of these companies, I think there are opportunities in this space, and specifically we do like DLF in this space given what they have done. Some of the better managed names like the Shobhas and the Oberois are things that we do like. and we think it's an opportunity, but you have to take a medium to long-term view here.
Right. I just wanted to understand, when you talk about valuations of these companies, it's meaningless to look at EPS because their growth
Correct.
rates have not been quite good.
Correct. So in real estate, it is never a question of EPS. It's a question of, there are two ways. You look at it cash flows, assuming cash flows are visible, or you look at it from an asset valuation standpoint. Now, the question really becomes asset valuation. It depends on, it's a wildly variable number. So what you want to look at is, have they enough cash flows to service the debt? When the cycle improves, whether they have enough assets which they can develop. And that's really the outlook that one could potentially take. Looking at on a quarter-on-quarter basis, on an EPS basis, is a meaningless exercise and will not work in many instances. Many of these real estate companies have also converted their properties into rental yield properties, and once listing of many of these through REITs come about, there will be predictability of cash flows which will help in the valuation kind of setting a floor, and whenever the cycle turns and sales start to improve, I think that's the option value that you have on many of these companies.
Ashish, any view on DLF?
I think, Pankaj, if you look at the stock, it has recovered from 100 odd levels to almost 118 kind of levels on the daily charts. But I think I see a limited scope of upside from current levels. Maybe 120, 121 can be tested, but it's not a very convincing chart, and I don't see any major volume also picking up. So clearly indicating that yes, there can be uptick of 2-3% from current levels, but around those levels, if someone is holding long, better to exit long positions around 120, 121.
Shrikant, as far as PVR is concerned or Inox is concerned, do you think that the impact of demonetization on those consumption areas would be very limited, and that's why price correction offers an opportunity to buy?
Yeah, I think these are good plays from a long-term perspective. So whatever correction which we get in the interim because of the demonetization impact or because of demand slowdown on account of that is clearly an opportunity. I think both these companies look very well placed from a long-term perspective, and this is a segment which is well poised for growth. And this is a purely consumer demand story, which I think which the entertainment leisure segment should play out over a period. And these are great opportunities to invest.
All right, that's a view coming in some of the distribution companies. Sameet, what about the auto stocks, stocks like the two-wheelers, Bajaj, Hero Honda and TVS? Any of these that you think can give any trading bounce or a rewarding strategy?
See, of late we have not been so active in the two-wheeler space. Rather, we are bullish on stocks like Maruti, then stocks like Tata Motors, which have already given a sharp rally during yesterday's session. For Maruti, we maintain our target of 5600, and Tata Motors certainly look good from current level also. So at least 4 to 5% move is quite likely in Tata Motors. As far as TVS Motor is concerned, it's been moving within boundaries of triangular pattern on daily chart, wherein the higher end is somewhere around 370, 372. So we would rather wait for a breakout to happen beyond 372. If that happens, then probably we could see this stock heading towards 390, 392. Till then, we would expect consolidation to continue in this particular stock.
All right. Do you have a view, Sameet, on IGL, Indraprastha Gas? Ashish's IGL is one of his picks, I think. Any levels you're looking at for IGL? It seems to be making new highs when markets are not going anywhere.
See, clearly it's been outperforming stock since last many months. It's been making new highs day by day. Clearly it's trading in uncharted territory. So going ahead, we could see extension of this move. At least in the near term, we could see the stock heading towards 938 to 944 levels. These are the extension ratios. As of now, the chart structure certainly seems looks good, wherein the base is somewhere around 870, 890.
All right. Ashish, amongst the PSU stocks like Engineers India, NBCC, I don't know if I don't think Dredging Corporation is in the F&O list. What kind of build-up are we seeing in some of these PSU names, Hindustan Copper or some of the metal-based PSU names as well? Anything looking attractive?
So within that space in the PSU basket, I think stocks like Power Grid, REC, PFC would be my preferred pick, because I think there we are witnessing a lot of build up happening, and continuously if you look at in terms of rollovers also, we have seen a very positive rollovers in last 2-3 months in stocks like Power Grid, REC, PFC. So I think within that, Power Grid is one stock which looks very interesting. I think stock has a potential to cross 200 mark in days to come. So I think at current levels one can initiate a long in Power Grid, keeping a stop below 182, and an upside can look for a target of 200 levels in Power Grid.
All right, thank you gentlemen for joining us on NDTV Profit today. We'll ask Anant Krishnan to stay with us, but Ashish, as you go, please leave us with the disclosures.
Yes, so few of these stocks which we have recommended is already have been discussed with our clients. I do not have any personal holding in any of them.
Shrikant, your disclosures?
No personal holding in any of them, but we could have recommended the same to our clients, and the clients may have positions in the same.
Sameet, your disclosures?
I don't have any personal holdings in the discussed stocks, but our clients might be having positions.
Thank you gentlemen for being with us on NDTV Profit. We'll slip into a break, and when we come back, we'll resume our conversation with Mr. Anant Krishnan. Stay with us.